Hello, Garland Nixon here, and the clowns came today in Vilnius. They came together for a NATO meeting. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. Let's talk about number one, the meeting. Number one through everything. Let's talk about the meeting today in Vilnius. Something that I want to touch base on before we get into that. I think it's critical to touch base on some very important statements that were made by former Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating. Right. Let's look at what Paul Keating said before we get into NATO, because we got to talk about what really is NATO. Right. Let's find it right here. So Paul Keating, here's his statement. And he says, this is his statement of NATO's provocative lurch eastward and the supreme fool, Jens Stoltenberg. Right. And here's what I like. So he goes on to say, NATO's continued existence after and at the end of the Cold War has already denied peaceful unity to the broader Europe, the promise of which the end of the Cold War held open. So he makes it clear. Look, they don't have peace, and it's NATO denying the peace. NATO does not bring peace. NATO does not bring security. It is the opposite. But here's what I like. Let's read this. This is my favorite part. And he says, the Europeans have been fighting each other for the better part of 300 years, including giving the rest of us 2 world wars in the last 100. Listen to this. And this is what's important. And I agree with him 100%. He says, he's talking about NATO, exporting that malicious poison to Asia would be akin to Asia welcoming the plague upon itself. With all of Asia's recent development amid its long and latent poverty, that promise would be compromised by having anything to do with the militarism of Europe and militarism egged on by the United States, right? Of all the people on the international stage, the supreme fool among them is Jens Stoltenberg, the current Secretary General of NATO. All right, let's talk about that. It's important what he said, because he talks about this is what's interesting about it. Paul, and here's a guy who is Australian, right? And if you think about Europe, right, there is a division. There is, and the Russians talk about it sometimes, and that is the Anglo-Saxon led empire. You know, let's be honest, the remnants of the British Empire. We can call it Anglo-Saxon, we call it what we are, the remnants of the British Empire. Okay. And with the remnants of the British Empire, here's a perfect example when it comes to Australia. They should know AUKUS. When they first really determined that China was a threat, they went out to bring the band back together. What did they bring together? The US, the UK, and Australia, right? They called it AUKUS. But what was it? It was the remnants of the British Empire coming back together. Did they include the French? Well, they're not English speakers. The Germans, they don't speak English. They were English speaking only. They were the remnants of the British Empire. They brought them together. They didn't even include Canada. Canada's a little too French for them. Some of the places in Canada speak French, right? It was so they brought them together, right? And the poison from Europe is a culture of long time war and colonialism and imperialism going around the world raising hell. Now, here's what I have to say about that, and I think it's important. That culture is the culture of the elite ruling class more than anything else. The failure we see today in the United States, the failure we see in Europe, is the failure of the elite ruling class. Europe never really got out of feudalism. It did in an economic way because they had a middle class. But when it actually comes to the leadership, the ruling of Europe, it was ruled by a very corrupt, a very selfish, narcissistic ruling class, a sociopathic ruling class that went around the world and stole the hell out of everybody's stuff. And Paul Keating's just basically saying, look, and I believe what he's saying is this: the elite ruling class of Europe and the United States are poisonous. And if you bring that poison into your house, you're going to get it all over you, and poison is deadly. And he's saying, look, Asia's doing well. They're finally making money. They're finally starting to grow. You don't bring the elite ruling class of Europe over here, they're going to screw it all up. And he's right. He's right. Now, I say all that to say this. Let's go back to NATO, because what really is NATO? What really was that NATO meeting today? It was the ruling class of Europe coming together. And why do I say that? Because when you look at the people that were there, it was the same EU faces, the same NATO faces, the same US empire faces, the people who don't give a damn about the people of Europe, who are running Europe into the ground. They all came together to continue and to talk about their plans for Russia. Now, here's what's interesting, and Ukraine, right? So they came up with a plan, a brilliant plan. Let me find it. Of when Ukraine is going to be invited in. Okay, so all of this stuff, the discussion was, is Ukraine going to be brought into NATO? When is it going to be? How is it going to be brought into NATO? What is going to happen, right? Well, the bottom line is this: we already know that there are some entities in Ukraine that in the NATO that will in no way allow Ukraine to be brought into NATO, right? That ain't happening. And number two, some of the rules for NATO: a country can't be at war. A country can't have border disputes. Hello. So they don't meet the criteria, and they're not. It would have to be unanimous, and that's not happening anyway. Because you think Hungary's going to say yes? There's a bunch of countries that will never say yes. France ain't going to say yes. Turkey, I doubt very serious if they'll say yes. So there's some countries that ain't going to say yes. So what they said was this: their statement is that Ukraine would be invited to join NATO only, quote, when allies agree and conditions are met. Well, how stupid is that? How stupid is that? Like we didn't know that. Hey, when are they going to be in Ukraine? When everybody says they can come into Ukraine and they meet the conditions necessary. Well, you didn't have to write that down. I think we already knew that. They can't get in unless everybody agrees and they meet the conditions. Everybody doesn't agree, they don't meet the conditions. Why did you bother with the statement? So they could pretend like they're saying something because they're a bunch of freaking idiots. That's why they said it. Rand Paul then went on. This is something that's very interesting. Well, Zelensky comes out and he rakes everybody over the coals. Right? Mr. Beggar Man, the guy that goes around hat in hand all the time. Please give me more weapons. Give me more money. But what's interesting about Zelensky is he doesn't say, please do that. He does not do that. See, the thing you got to understand is this. Zelensky is cocky because he believes he's speaking for Joe Biden. He believes he's speaking for Nuland. He believes he's speaking for the U.S. empire. He's arrogant and he's cocky because he feels like he's got the U.S. empire before him. So he goes around and he lets these people have it. You're not giving me stuff. How dare you not give me what I want? And you're not giving it to me quick enough. You lazy, trifling, worthless sons of bitch. Every single one of you can't stand you. I mean, basically, that's the position he does. This ragtag dirtbag walks into NATO. Well, of course, with no doubt, he wouldn't know a suit and tie if you tied him up and put it on him. But he walks in with his usually looking like a pimp, a green pimp with his sweatshirt on. Hey guys, I mean, you would think that he would at least say thank you. Nope. Zelensky comes in and he talks to the leaders of Europe like Victoria Nuland talks to him. He might as well say F the EU. And if you think about it, that's why he talks to them like that. You think when he's in meetings with Victoria Nuland and Biden and Jake Sullivan, do you think they speak fondly of the EU? Do you think they're like, well, our dear friends and buddies and partners in Germany and France? No, they're not. They're like, F Germany and France. We blew their pipeline up and we'll blow it up again. Screw those maggots. We can't stand them. They mean nothing to us. And then when Zelensky gets in front of them, he's like, hey, I work for these people. It's like somebody who's a made man. going to talk to somebody in the mafia because he knows he speaks for the Don. He speaks for the guy in charge. He knows nobody's going to touch him, because to disrespect him, to touch him would be to disrespect the leader of the mafia. And then you'd get yourself killed doing that. That's why the made man is so arrogant and cocky in the mafia, right? Well, that's all he is. But the Biden team are a mafia. They're a criminal organization. And so Zelensky walks in and he believes that he's speaking for the Don of the mafia. So he walks in and he's not thankful. He's not grateful. He doesn't have to be. He works for the mafia. So he walks in and he says, you pieces of crap, every last one of you. And they're like, hey, we gave you a tank. Shut up, piece of crap tank you give me. You should be lucky I don't slap you out of your seat right now, Macron. And as for you, Schultz, you filthy scumbag, I wish that we were the ones that had blown up that pipeline. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to. Biden blew it up. But next time, we're blowing it up for first. I can't stand you. And he just goes right down the line, looking at each other. He probably walks down the line and just slaps every one of them, turns their head in the same direction. Bat, bit, bat. He should slap them, and he should just walk up to Jens Stoltenberg and just urinate on him. That's what he should do, just urinate on Jens Stoltenberg. Why? What do you think he's going to do? He's going to whine and whimper and cry. He's going to look at Joe Biden. Mr. Joe, can I say something? He beat on me. Shut up, or I'll do it myself. Think about this. A nobody, a clown, a comedian walks in amongst the leadership of Europe, such as they are, and disrespects them. And finally, so one of the things that happened today was Rand Paul got a little pissed off, and he complained about, it says Rand Paul has called out an audacious rant by Vladimir Zelensky on NATO's reluctance to guarantee accession for chaos. I've been watching too much Get Smart. Kiev. He says, there's an old English adage he might need to become aware of. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. We've given him $100 billion, and he has the audacity to be so brazen as to tell us we'd better speed it up. I'd say that's audacious. I'd say it's brazen. And that's not very grateful for the $100 billion that we've given him so far. No. Why? Why would Rand Paul, why does he need to be grateful? It don't matter to him. Look, let's not forget. One of the things that we learned in recent weeks was that the head of the CIA went to Kiev to talk to Zelensky. And he basically said, Zelensky, you've peeled $400 million off into your pockets. You're stealing too much. Share some of it with the generals, man. You've gone too far here. Maybe can you cut it down to 300, 250 maybe? Come on, you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars here to execute hundreds of thousands of the young men. The flower of the youth of Ukraine is being thrown into a meat grinder and torn to shreds, and you're getting a couple $100 million. Ain't that enough? Right? And so the bottom line is this. Why would Zelensky's filling his pockets with hundreds of millions of dollars? He don't care. He's not really the head of Ukraine. He's a puppet. He is an actor, and he's doing his job. This role is the role of the leader of Ukraine. And he came in there, and Biden probably told him, screw these idiots. I hate them. You know, Victoria Nuland said it. Hey, there's Schultz. Oh, God, not Schultz. Just pee on that guy. Spit on him first. He could look. Do you think? Let me ask you this. True. And let's be honest about this. Do you think if Zelensky walked right up to Schultz and spit in his face, do you think Schultz would do anything? Do you think Schultz would push back? Do you think he would say, "Hey, that's not. I don't like that"? Do you think he'd punch him? He wouldn't do anything. Zelensky, and everybody here knows it may sound like a joke, it may sound like humor, it may sound like silliness, or whatever the case may be. But everybody watching this knows good and damn well that if Zelensky walked up to Schultz and looked him right in the eyes and said, "You know what? I can't stand you. You are weak. You are sorry. You are a poor, pathetic excuse for a man," and just spit right in his face, Schultz would would take out his napkin and wipe it off and look at Joe Biden and ask for permission to say something. "Sir, permission to speak, sir." Like he was in the freaking Marine Corps. "Sir, permission to speak, sir." Joe Biden would say, "Permission denied." "Yes, sir, sir." And he'd sit back there. He wouldn't even wipe his face off. unless he had permission for Joe Biden. These people, they're going to, the so-called leaders of the EU are going to humiliate and degrade themselves in Vilnius. That's all they're doing. They go there day one, right? Day one. Hey, all right, let's get started. And our first speaker is Vladimir Zelensky. Mr. President Zelensky, what have you to say? I hate all of these people in here. I hate every one of you. You sicken me. You, and you. How dare you deny me what I ask? Joe Biden, can I spit on him, please? Can I spit on him? I hate these people. He just came in and told him he hates them. They make him sick. He despises the ground they walk on, and they just sat there and kissed his ass for doing it. Thank him and beg him for doing it. You know, I got to say this. In history, has anyone ever seen such a pathetic group of weakling, spineless jellyfish in one room? I mean, every now and then you get some real wimp that's in a room, or maybe a couple of them. But a crew like that, Schultz, Macron, Rishi Sunak, like, he's pathetic. You know what Rishi Sunak reminds me of, to be quite frank? Yeah, anybody here have a dog? And you know, when you come home, and you know, dogs are wonderful. They just love you, and puppies and all that, right? Dogs are great, right? And you come home, and your dog is so happy that he keeps still, right? He's wiggling his hip and he's rubbing up against you, right? And he's wiggling and he jumps up and his feet get to going, and he runs at you, or he goes and gets his toy and he brings it to you and he drops it at your feet and he nudges it to you, and you throw the toy down the hall and he runs and he slides and that dog is so happy to see you. He is in love with you. You are his entire world. That's what makes dogs great. You know, unconditional love, right? Dogs are wonderful little creatures. But that's Rishi Sunak with Joe Biden. Joe Biden comes around. Rishi Sunak, he's wagging he's running around. It's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. Now, Europe, you look at the economy, you look at frickin' the UK, pubs are closing down, everything's closing down, people are in poverty, homeless people wandering the damn street, food banks everywhere, they're giving away clothes because people can't afford to them, their jobs are closing down, they're in recession, depression. It is a disaster. And Rishi Sunak's just looking around like, yeah, well, screw these people, who cares, I'm rich. And then a plane lands and Joe Biden gets off, and he gets to wiggling his little hips and tail like a stinking mutt, like a dog. He wiggles and he walks up. I'm embarrassed for him. I'm embarrassed for him. I'm embarrassed for the people of the UK that this guy wiggles his hips like a dog and he walks up to Joe Biden. And then here's what you got to love. And then Joe Biden, like, always disrespects him. He wiggles. It's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. Joe. And Joe Biden's like, you get the hell out of the way. Is there somebody else? Hey, is there a white person I could talk to? Perhaps a king. Maybe somebody that was on Epstein's island. This guy wasn't on Epstein's island. Get him out of the way. For God's sake, I hate his guts. And meanwhile, Sunak's just a wiggling. Hey, I'm the little brown guy that's been stuck in here to hold the seat until they find somebody else to stick in, until Bojo or Liz Truss or some other idiot comes back. Rishi Sunak is an embarrassment to humanity. The only person worse is Olaf Scholz. And not a lot by a lot, but let's face it, Olaf Scholz is an embarrassment to life forms. To all life forms in the universe, he is an embarrassment to them. Sometimes when I look at Olaf Scholz, I think to myself, maybe the universe would be all better off if there was just nothing. Maybe the universe would be better off if none of us were here. If it was just a blank space, maybe one tennis ball. No, well, actually, I guess you'd have to have two tennis balls floating in that space. That way, you would know if one was closer to the other, so you could, kind of figure out if there was actually something moving or where they were, have location, things like that. So maybe two tennis balls. That's all it should be. When I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, yes, I've had a good life. And I'd like doing things and all, but it ain't worth it. I'm sorry. If it means getting rid of Olaf Scholz, then forget life forms, period. Let's just have a blank universe. No, nothing. No quarks. No, nothing. Just empty the universe out right now. And that way, at least Olaf Scholz will be gone, because realistically, it ain't worth it with this guy. It is not worth seeing his existence. It's pathetic, and I am embarrassed as a carbon-based being to see this clown, Rishi Sunak, wiggling up to Biden like a dog, and Olaf Scholz curling in the corner, sucking his thumb in the fetal position, waiting for Biden to blow up the next piece of his infrastructure. These people make me sick. Every stinking last one of these quislings and traitors. And might I say, what the hell's up? I'm getting on a rant, but that's okay. What the hell's up with the European people? If you look in, I mean, if you're in a country and you wake up one morning, you turn on the TV and you say, let's see who the prime minister is, and you see Olaf Scholz, you got to make a move at that point. You got to say, I'm out of this country, or something has to happen. But if you live in a country and Olaf Scholz is in charge, it's time to act. Okay, that is an indication that things have gone really bad. This guy your infrastructure ain't safe. You know that. He's dragging you into God only knows what World War III. He has no clue what to do. So I'm just saying, when I say it's a clown show, start with Rishi Sunak and Olaf Scholz. Macron, what is he going to do? Hot and cold. One day he's going to say NATO's brain dead. We got to stand up for NATO. Against NATO. We don't want any trouble. Let's go talk to Putin. The next day we're sending long-range missiles so they can strike Moscow. Why? Because he can never get too far from his master's voice. You got to understand something about Macron. France is screwed. France is not a real country. See, that's what people don't understand. France ain't a real country. France is like the United States. It is a pirate ship. When the West African countries are starting to throw France out. And France is only a rich country because they steal so damn much gold and everything from West Africa. When Africa gets rid of, when Francophone Africa is no more, European France ain't gonna be much more either. So that's a fraud. So they come together, Macron and whoever, right? Sunak, Scholz. Think about this group. Think about that group right there. Rishi Sunak, a wiggling dog at the feet of the empire. Joe Biden, who doesn't really know. He didn't know if he was in Lithuania, Pennsylvania. He didn't know where the hell he was. He had no idea where he was. You know, he would be in Pennsylvania because they had a train derailment there, and he might have to be concerned about the American people, and that ain't what he's doing, right? So you got these schmucks, Sunak and Scholz and Macron. Oh, what a pathetic group. And then, of course, those rabid dogs from like these little Lithuania, the Baltic states. What a pathetic place. Just what a horrible place. The Baltic states. A bunch of clowns in charge of the Baltic states who trace the legacy, their political legacy, back to collaborators with the Nazis. Pretty much every one of them. Every one of them. And Ukraine doesn't have to trace their political legacy back to collaborators with the Nazis. They're just plain old Nazis. So you got Poland now, who a friend of mine was in Poland not long ago, and he said, let me tell you, Garland, he said, don't think that the Polish people are all that crazy about going to war with Russia, because they ain't. And a lot of them are wondering why Poland is such good damn friends with the Banderite Nazis, the same people who hacked a bunch of Polish people to death with garden utensils. They hacked them to death because they didn't want to waste bullets on them. Now, how bad is that? Hey, what are we going to do? We're going to hack that guy to death. Why are you going to hack him to death? You kidding? He ain't worth a freaking bullet. He's not worth the powder it would take to blow him away. So we'll just beat him to death with a common garden utensil. That's what the Poles mean to the Banderites. And now they're like, hey, we got to stand up. We got to stand with the Banderites. They're our friends. Yeah, let me tell you something. If the Banderites ever get in power, Poland, they'd kill every one of you. That's the sad thing. If they ever actually got power, they would kill every damn one of those Poles. And let me tell you something. These Jewish people in America and in the EU that are running around with these friggin' blue and yellow flags, these tattoo swastika covered Nazis would kill every one of them. If they got in power, they'd kill every one of them. Wouldn't even hesitate to kill every one of them. So I look at Europe right now and I say, boy, that's an embarrassing part of the world right now. We got a lot of good people. We got a lot of strong people. We got a lot of people that are waking up saying, hey, what the hell's going on here? But God damn, we got some of the dumbest people on earth there and here in the United States, in the West. We got some of the stupidest people that just stand around and just their government can guide them off a cliff. They can say to them, you have to sacrifice and your jobs, your culture, your life, you got to sacrifice everything. Why? So we can be richer. And so we can like be in charge of everything because our power is waning and there's a multipolar world and we don't like that. So you have to suffer. That's what they're saying to the people of Europe, and the people of Europe and the United States. At least some of them, I'm glad. A lot of people are starting to question it. But for a long time, I was like, good Lord, these people kind of deserve what they got coming, including Americans, if we're stupid enough to follow Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So all of that being said, I got a little angry and I just started ranting. Let's chill out a bit and let's get back to it. So what happened? Going into NATO, you wonder why they did this scramble. They basically gave Erdogan everything he wanted to try to get Sweden and to try to get a couple of odds and ends out of him. Why is that? The plan was to do an offensive and to hurt Russia in the offensive, to make Russia lose a lot of troops, to maybe take some towns. They were hoping for some towns. They were hoping to break through Russia's defenses, whatever the case may be. They were hoping to get some good news from the battlefield, and they ain't got any. Nothing here the last week. What did they do? They rode through Ukrainians into the minefields, and what happens when you go into minefields? And you don't come out of minefields. You go in. It's like the old advertisement for a roach motel. Roaches go in, but they don't come out. That's what happens to soldiers. When you go into a minefield, you go into a minefield. You don't come out of a minefield. Well, let me put it a different way. Not all of you comes out. Parts of you may come out of the minefield. Maybe not even all at the same time. I'm just saying, if you go into a minefield, probably your career as a soldier is going to come to a screeching halt. So their plan, which was throwing Ukrainians into a minefield, it worked. They were able to throw Ukrainians into a minefield. The outcome that they had planned, which is a highly flawed outcome from the very beginning, you tell the Russians for the last 6 to 8 months, you're going to attack, and tell them where you're going to attack so they can set up all the defensive lines that they can possibly think of. And then you go right into the teeth of those defensive lines. It ain't hard to figure out how that's going to work out. However, these clowns thought, nah, we want it to come out differently. So we'll just dream and we'll come up with a narrative and we'll tell everybody why it's going to work and why our plan is so good and how it's going to work. And then the guys go into the minefield. I don't care how many computer simulations you do. I don't care how many discussions you have, how many plans you have, how you work it out, how much equipment you have, all of the things you can do, all the preparation in the world. If your plan is sending guys into a minefield and you think you're going to get a victory, it's a flawed plan. And ultimately, all you're going to get is a bunch of guys and war material blown to smithereens. This wasn't very difficult for the Russians. Can you imagine that? They're sitting back there and they're looking at there, and they're chewing on something, and they're looking out over the battlefield and looking at each other. And they're like, I think those guys are advancing into the minefield. And, the other Russian guys are like, nah, nobody could get out of here. They're not that stupid. That's just a ploy. Let's watch for what they're really doing. Watch in the air. There's got to be missiles coming in. Something's happening. They're up to nothing. This is a decoy. They're going to pretend to come in through the minefield, but they're really going to fly in with helicopters. They're going to drop parachutes. They're going, oh my God, they've got the devious and deep plan. Be prepared, guys. They got their guns. They're looking all over. And a bunch of Ukrainians bunched together in Bradleys are coming right down the middle of the minefield. And they're like, should we shoot them? And they're like, they're in a minefield. Don't waste your bullets. I tell you what we'll do. Anybody got any rubles together? Yeah, let's take them out and let's start a pool. I say that guy goes first. Nah, I got 5 rubles. Okay, I got 6 rubles, says that guy goes first. All right, you got a bet. Boom. Damn it. Here's your 6 rubles. All right, next. They had a pool. They sat back behind the line with a pool, betting rubles. They picked them out. Hey, there's a Bradley over there. Look, there's a Challenger coming right through the minefield. I got the Challenger. No, I saw him first. I got the Challenger. Oh, crap. Okay. $10 on the Challenger, $5 on the Bradley. Ah, crap. He blew up already before I even got to get the bet out. There's probably some guy in like the midst of the platoon making a fortune. He set up a table, and then he's got like a little picture of a Bradley, a picture of a Challenger, and a picture of, you know, a Leopard tank. And he's like, all right, put your money down here. Everybody put your money down here. You, 5 rubles on the Bradley. Anybody else? 5 on the Bradley, 5 on the Bradley, 5 on the Bradley. Can we hear Leopard? Leopard, 5 on the Leopard, 5 on the, 5 on the Leopard. They're sitting there betting. And then, boom, up the Leopard wins. Everybody. And he shoves like a casino. He's shoveling the money over. Hey, everybody, don't bet on the Leopard. I'm just telling you, don't bet. From what I've heard, don't bet on the Leopard, okay? The Leopard's going to go first. But, so I guess to some extent, sadly, it was some level of amusement for the Russian soldiers. Somebody could make a few dollars on a sign, setting up a betting table, because let's face it, they didn't have to aim down range. They didn't have to fire. They didn't have to waste. These poor bastards got sent right down the middle of a minefield to an untimely demise. That was NATO's plan. Now, that being said, with a plan like that, how do you think things worked out on the first day of their meeting? People with a brilliant plan who's going to annihilate the Russian army by sending a bunch of poor bastards down the middle of a minefield. How do you think their meetings came together? Of course, Zelensky raked them over the coals. That was probably the highlight of the meeting. I tell you what you didn't get at the meeting. Hey guys, can we get a report from the battlefield? Shh. Somebody's out there, but wait a minute, I've got it right here. You know, the guy's like the MC or whoever, you know, he's up at the front of the stage and he's got his microphone. Hey guys, and next a report from the battlefield. Who's that? And Biden's in the corner and different people, you know, they're like, no. And he's like, but right here it says, section 2, 11:15 a.m. report from back. And he's like, oh, no. Okay. Well, in that case, we're going to lunch. We got some Danishes in the back. Got some nice hot coffee over there. Some schnitzel. The Germans are here. Schnitzel. Help yourself to schnitzel. Whatever the hell schnitzel is, help yourself with some schnitzel. And we'll be back at 12. See you later. Adios, my friends. No report from the battlefield. I'm going to guarantee you damn that, because that would have been easy. Hey, what's the report from the battlefield? Yeah, we sent a bunch of guys into, I think, a minefield or something like that. Really, did any of them come out? So how's the schnitzels? Did any of them come out? Hey, you know, they got some great coffee. They've got a very good dark roast over there. Help yourself to the coffee, everybody. We'll move on. They ain't answering that question, because the answer is no. Somebody should ask, you know what? And here'd be the next question. Who came up with the battle plan? Whose idea was it? Who came up with the battle plan? Whoever it is, he ain't there. Whoever it is that came up with the battle plan, they ain't there. They're back in the bowels of the Pentagon somewhere hiding. They've turned the lights out. They've cut off their email. If you email them, hey, General so-and-so, we want to talk to you about your battle plan and what's happening on the field and on the battlefield in Ukraine. And the email just bounced back. Sorry, I'm out of the office right now. I'll get back to you when the war's over. That's what you're getting. You're getting a bounce back email out of office, because that guy ain't talking, whoever it is. The guy who sat around and told everybody how his brilliant scheme of kidnapping a bunch of damn people at 1 o'clock at night, coming out of a bar in Lviv and shoving them into a Bradley and sending them out in the middle of the battlefield to take out the Russian army. The guy that came up with that brilliant plan, I can tell you this right now, he's in hiding. He's hanging out with Zelensky and whoever the hell after these guys that have been missing for the last 6 months. Done. You ain't going to find him. He's hiding. And I don't blame him. And so now all they could do today was come together and get raked over the coals for a while by Zelensky. And that's his job. Actually, that's his job. And they probably had it right there in the meeting notes. 10 o'clock, Vladimir Zelensky rakes everybody over the coals, complains, gripes, ungrateful son of a bitch. that he is all going to, and they were all prepared for it because they knew what was coming, because that's his job. Really, if you think about it, that's his job. His job is to beg for weapons, never get enough, tell everybody why the failure is because they're not given enough weapons. That's his job. That's all he does. He goes around and begs for weapons and tells everybody, we're failing because you haven't given us enough weapons. Give us more weapons. He never says thanks for the weapons. He says we need more, no matter what. And so that's what he's doing. He's doing his job. He's begging for weapons. And I would imagine in the afternoon, they just pretty much mold around. The afternoon, they're like, okay, lunch is over. Let's get back together. Okay, now it's 1 o'clock and let's talk. And you know, people are like, all right, what's on the agenda next? You know, really, 1 o'clock. Hold on. Hey, Joe Biden, what's on the agenda? I thought you wrote the agenda. I did. I didn't have anything for after lunch. We'll make something up. Okay. Oh, yeah. Let's get a presentation about M777 howitzers. We got anything that know anybody about it? They're begging. They're looking. They got nothing. What are they going to talk about? They're losing on the battlefield. Hey, let's talk about the economics. You know, can you imagine that? All right, next we're going to talk about the results of the sanctions. Let's bring somebody on. And Biden's in the back again. And the guy's like, but I'm not supposed to talk about the outcome of the sanctions. Okay. They got nothing, man. They got nothing but time to fill. I would hate to be the person in charge of setting things up on a day-to-day basis, because they got nothing but time to fill. Everything they've touched has gone to hell. And now here they sit. What kind of plan could they possibly have when they walk away? When they finish this, I mean, I'm covering it for work. I'm covering it for journalism. I'm covering it. But realistically, after today, after this morning, I know they got nothing on their agenda for the next 2 days, because I got nothing to cover. They came together. They met. They had some coffee and schnitzel. They got raked over the coals by Zelensky. I don't know where to go from there. Are they going to talk about Asia? Hey, let's talk about China. What are they going to say about China? They can't get out of Ukraine. You know, they want a piece of China. They can't get out of Ukraine. Meanwhile, I don't know if you know it, they ain't doing so well in the Middle East. MBS over there in Saudi Arabia is telling them Blinken or somebody went over there and talked to him about normalizing relations with Israel. And he said, get the hell out of here. That ain't happening. And then he said, what I am going to do is start financing projects in Syria. So the U.S. is unhappy about that. Too bad. MBS doesn't care. Nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares. Africa, they're laughing. They're laughing at the stupid Europeans, and they're laughing at the imperialists in the U.S. they're like, guys, we got an excuse in Africa. You guys overthrow our government and put a puppet in. What excuse do you have in Germany? What excuse do you have in the UK? We got an excuse in Africa, and we can see through this crap, and you guys can't. The Africans are laughing at them. They're like, you guys are idiots. You can't see through this. The Muslim community is like, yeah, we're done with you. We're finished. We're dealing with China. That's where Middle East now is. They're dealing with China. Latin America, same thing. They're like, yeah, we're sick of this Monroe Doctrine crap. We'll be hanging out with Iran. It's over. It's, you know, in looking at this summit today, it's a skeleton crew. It is a skeleton. There's no meat on the bones of NATO anymore. Everybody knows what NATO is. You got Paul Keating, former Australian prime minister, literally referring to NATO as poison, literally saying to allow NATO into Asia is like bringing a plague into your house, like inviting a plague into your house. NATO is poisonous. The world, outside of the poor idiots in the West who somehow still think NATO is a credible organization, the world sees it for what it is. You know, one of the things somebody was telling me today, they said, yeah, NATO said they're going to put 300,000 troops on the border of Russia. Yeah, sounds good. Where are they going to get them? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? Does Germany have the money? Nope. UK, they're broke as hell. How about France? I think they're rebuilding from the people in France being pissed off from the yellow vests to the uprising over the what was it? Adding 2 years to the pension reform, to the latest young kid getting shot. They tore the hell out of France. France has gone through 3 iterations of getting the crap torn out of it. I'm sure there's a fourth coming. But does France have the money? France has got to rebuild. Half of France got burned down. Do they have the money now to pay for hundreds of thousands of troops to go to Europe? And might I add, meanwhile, Germany, France, I think the UK's got 40 tanks left. So they're going to send 300,000 people. Well, first of all, did they have equipment for them? They don't have the tanks. They don't have the trucks. They gave it all to UK, and it's been blown up. So now NATO says we'll put 300,000 troops on the border of Russia, but they don't have the troops. They don't have the money to support the troops. They don't have the equipment to issue to the troops. They're a pathetic joke, a toothless tiger militarily, and everybody knows it. People are like, yes, there are a lot of people in the West. I wonder if NATO is going to join the war. Oh, really? With what? With what? What are you going to join the war with? Hey, let's get in. Okay, I got 40 tanks. What about you? I got 8. What about you? I got 10. Okay, we've come up with 58 tanks. How many do you think we need to go against Russia? About 1,000 at least. Probably more like 3,000 tanks or something like that. Well, we got 58. So they don't have enough military equipment. I'll put it like this. They couldn't fight what's left of the Ukraine army, much less Russia. And Lithuania and the Baltic states, what, they got like 1 million people or so. I got more people in a community that I live in than they got in like Lithuania. Get out of here. I live in a tiny state, Maryland. We got 6 million people. More than almost double of the Baltic states all put together. They are pathetic little chihuahuas. They are a little chihuahua barking while the tractor trailer goes by. The tractor trailer don't hear you. And if you get in front of it, you're going to get run over, Lithuania. But they got a lot of big talk. You would think that Lithuania and these Baltic states are the size of Russia. And the only reason they had this thing in Lithuania is because they're barking dogs, because they will do what the empire says. If the U.S. empire says to impale yourself on this stake, Lithuania is impaling themselves on the stake. Germany already did it. Why wouldn't Lithuania? So now what we've got is this. We've got a bunch of people that have come together. They have no results. They have no plan. Oh, and by the way, might I add this? And I'm sure you're all aware of this. Joe Biden was asked, why is it that you're sending cluster munitions? And that idiot, we already know he's not supposed to tell the truth. And Joe Biden, you can tell this guy's got dementia because he tells the truth. Joe Biden couldn't tell the truth if you waterboarded him. But because he has dementia now, he has no other option. He don't know. So they're like, Biden, why are you giving him cluster munitions? And he says, because we're running out of ammunition. That all the neocons went, oh, geez, you're not supposed to tell anybody that. You're not supposed to say we're running out of ammunition. For God's sake, Joe. But Joe doesn't know. They can't say anything to Joe. Come on, give Joe a break. He doesn't know. So the bottom line is this. Somebody said, what if Russia nukes that party? Russia doesn't have to nuke it. No, why nuke it? If you see your enemy walking off a cliff, go get a drink. That's all. All Russia needs to do is go get a drink. Get some vodka and orange juice or something and just sit back there and sip on it and watch it. Russia can watch it. They can just sit there and say, well, they should have said, can we send somebody? Hey, we're Russia. We'd like to send an observer to the NATO meeting, and we'd like to tape the whole thing. Really, why is that? Just for laughs back at the Kremlin. We're going to watch it. We'll be holding our bellies, rolling over, listen to you guys talk. I mean, it's pretty hilarious. And that's what Russia could do. Russia understands that it's dangerous times. They understand that these people are idiots and fools. But what Russia does know is that Russia is capable of defending itself from NATO, but NATO ain't capable of defending itself from Russia right now. Not capable of doing it. Russia wouldn't have to overrun if they wanted to. Right now, if Russia wanted to head all the way to the friggin' English Channel, all they'd have to do is put their tanks in gear. There ain't nothing to slow them up, but they don't want to. They don't want anything to do with Europe. They are now. It is clear and obvious to them that these people are out of that the leadership of Europe is out of their frickin' minds. And so far, unless something changes, the people of Europe don't seem to be of a mind to change their leadership. So they're being dragged straight down the path of economic hell. So why is Russia going to do anything? They've gone in a different direction. Russia's like, look, we see you guys screwing up, and if you try to attack us, we'll flatten you. But if you don't, we'll just be over here minding our business and kind of sniggling a little bit, kind of laughing at how stupid you freaking idiots are and watching you collapse your own economy for a guy who's got dementia. So that's where we are with NATO. We are in a place where the stupidest people on earth have come together for a clown show, and they don't know what to say. And the best statement they can come up for Ukraine is, we'll let them in NATO when we have enough votes and when they meet the criteria. Oh, that's brilliant. You didn't need a meeting for that. We already know that. It's kind of like in the bylaws or whatever they have for NATO. It's in the bylaws. Let's see. In the rules for NATO, number one, it has to be in order to get into NATO, it has to be unanimous vote, number one. And number two, you have to meet certain criteria. And what do they say today? When we got enough votes and it meets the criteria, you didn't even have to make a statement. That was out. But when they didn't have anything else, any other cards to play, they made a statement as if it was new information, as if this was something, get out of here. What a joke. So I'm watching these people, and you know what I'm thinking about? All of this buildup, right, to the NATO, all of this buildup, yes, sirree, coming soon to a town near you, the NATO meeting. You'd have thought it was like the World Cup. You'd have thought that countries would be home watching all over the place. Nobody's really watching. Nobody really cares. And when it's over, you don't get a trophy. When this thing is over, they're going to leave and they're going to say, we met and we showed that we were united. And we're all together, and now we're going to send more stuff. But Joe Biden has already said they're all almost out of stuff. And you know what the Russians are going to do? They're going to just keep doing what they're doing, because that's what they do. They're going to keep fighting like they're fighting. They're going to keep taking their time. They're going to keep making stuff. They're going to keep prepping. They're going to keep doing military drills with China, just to remind everybody, just to remind the U.S., if you fight us or fight China, you might be fighting both us and China. They're going to remind them of that. They're going to do in various ways. Recently, I just saw that Vladimir Putin in October is going to be going to China. Interesting. I wonder what they're planning for October. I wonder what they're planning between now and October. But that also says something, too. It says the Russians are in no rush. That I would imagine Putin probably feels like this. It'll maybe still be going on, and they'll still be sending some friggin' idiots in the minefields. It'll be like this. Look, they did it in the summer. They had a spring offensive, or they had basically what did they have? They had a fall offensive last year. And during that fall offensive, the Russians had some areas where they didn't have enough people, so they backed out and they let them take it. And the U.S. was like, yay, we won. We took some ground. Then the Russians recently took most of that ground back that they wanted. And they've been inflicting pain and punishment on them ever since. And now I guess the Russians figure, we got all our defensive lines set up. Come really about August, Zelensky will go after this. Really, what's going to happen? Zelensky's going to go on the begging trail again, going around for the fall offensive now. Hey, you got any tanks left? The Brits are going to be like, we got 40. Shut up and give me your tanks. And you better get making more tanks, because I'm going to need another 40 soon. Who else? Schultz, you got any tanks? Well, shut up. Give me the freaking tanks, you idiot. Yes, master. They're going to go around, go on the big and say, and we're getting ready for the fall offensive. Really? What's going to happen with the fall offensive? Oh, man, let me tell you something, brother. We're going to kick ass and take names for the fall offensive. Where are you going to attack? Zaporizhia again. Yeah, we're thinking Zaporizhia. That's where we're going again. Same spot, right into the minefields. But this time's going to be different. The fall, man. I wouldn't want to be the Russians this fall, brother, because we're going to put it on them, and we're going to be able to do that. But first, we need all of you guys to unload everything you got in Kiev. Give us everything you got, and we will then use that to attack the Russians in the fall and take them out. And the Russians are sitting there yawning. Oh, crap, this again. Hey, guys, make sure the minefields got plenty of mines in them. we got some customers. That's the long and short of it. I don't know what else to say. I don't even know how to report on this farcical group of clowns coming together to pretend that they think they can win this thing. This war is over. The special military operation is over. There is no chance, there never was, but now there is no chance. There is no possibility that this thing is going to bring down the Russian economy. If the Russian economy takes any hits, it's going to be because of the price of oil or gas, because the West is going into recession. That you know what it's like the West. Yeah, well, we'll fix them. How? We'll go into recession, and then they won't be able to sell us as much oil and stuff, and then that'll hurt their economy. But you'll be in recession. It's almost, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that like South American tree frog. That his defense is this: if you eat one of these frogs, let's say an animal comes along and eats one of these frogs, well, they've got this stuff in them. It's like a poison, and it'll make the animal get violently ill. He'll barf all over the place. He'll throw up. He'll have diarrhea for days. He will just be an absolute live a life of hell and misery. And then after that, he'll never eat one of those frogs again, right? Okay. For the frog species, it's a pretty good defense. But for any given individual frog, it is an ironic natural phenomenon that Mother Nature would say, here's the plan, dude. You're a frog. Yeah, somebody's going to eat you. And they're going to get sick and they won't eat anybody else. And if you're that frog, you're like, I don't like that. Can't I have fangs or something? Claws? Maybe. I don't fly. Maybe I could fly away. But the idea that I got to get eaten, somebody's going to digest me and they're going to poop themselves for a week and they're not going to eat my brother, that don't work for me. But you're a South American tree frog. That's what nature has dealt out to you. That is the cruel irony that nature has dealt out to you. It's kind of what's going on in Europe right now. That is the cruel irony that the U.S. empire is dealing out on Europe and on Ukraine. And now they're going to go suffer like hell. At any rate, let us check and see if we got any super chats. Crap, it's always hard for me to get to the super chats. But we get the best questions with super chats. Okay, I see one. I see something. Valley S. Hooray, Valley S. Any chance of a Scott Ritter video very soon? I'd love you to talk about the Scott Ritter Extra Substack movie released today called Agent Zelensky Part 1. Thanks for all you do. Yes, in fact, I think there's a very good chance Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. that this very channel will have Scott Ritter. Let me see if Scott got back to me. No, I just sent him a message that said, I'll send you your link tomorrow morning at 8 or 8:30. But he usually doesn't get back to you. But he's pretty reliable. So pretty sure we'll be seeing Scott Ritter in the morning. And this is going to be fun, isn't it? Think about this. Scott Ritter tomorrow morning. I'm sure he's going to have plenty to say. Raphael says, Sergei Shoigu is no longer waiting on Putin to talk. I think Russia is tired of Putin's Gandhi-like approach. Shoigu is getting ready to attack. I don't know. I'll put it to you like this. Let me tell you this. If I was Putin, I don't know if I'd attack. I don't know. You know, I'm a patient guy. And you know what I say? Beware the fury of a patient man. The U.S. empire is collapsing. Don't rush it, man. Don't rush it. Your guys are sitting back. They're playing cards. They're watching these idiots come into the minefields. Don't get me wrong. There's some serious fighting going on, and it's, you know, problematic. But you're wearing your adversary down. They're running out of ammo. You're fighting them. They're getting weaker and weaker. You don't need to do a big offensive. You're just chipping away at the foundation of the U.S. empire. I've said all along, if I were in charge of Russia, I'd probably keep chipping away. Now that ain't saying they ain't going to do a big offensive, because they might. I mean, this would be the perfect time to do it. But we'll see. I wouldn't. I'd just keep chipping away, man. If they're that stupid, I'd just keep punching. If they're going to stick their chin in front of me, if you're boxing and some guy just sticks his chin out there, just keep hitting it until he falls. The schnitzel is hilarious. Thanks a lot, MJ Anti-Imperialist Party. Thank you. Sparky says, great work, Garland. Thanks a lot, Sparkster. Sparky again says, make Ukraine Russia again. Way to go, Sparky. All right. Rob Juno says, thanks, G. Any predictions on what this clown summit will produce? Lunacy It ain't going to produce nothing. They've come together. They don't have the wherewithal. They don't have the military or economic wherewithal to fight Russia. They can't take it to Russia, and they know it. So it ain't going to produce nothing but more yapping, talking. They'll walk away and they'll write a communique or something. They'll all come together for a white paper or something. We've all come together and we've written a communique. What does it say? Russia's bad and they have to lose. Ukraine has to win because of democracy and territorial integrity, and something like that. Is that good enough? Yeah, it's good enough. Okay, that's what it says then. What a joke. It isn't even, it's so bad, it almost isn't even worth covering. We're covering it. I got to cover it, but it ain't worth covering. Red Chili Pepper says, super sticker. Thanks a lot. Okay, now let's look at Rockfin. All right. May we, TD says, may we achieve a level of humane existence. P.S. Dogs are great. Gotta love dogs. Eleanor says, oh, thanks a lot, Eleanor Johnson. Always logical, completely verifiable information. Thank you. Garland says, TD. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let's see. Hey, friends and neighbors. Good, everyone. I think that's it. Well, let's see. What's the big news? There's one last piece of big news that I think you guys might find interesting. And that is, here we go. All right. I'm going to present that to you. And voila. Miss Netherlands contestant becomes the first openly trans woman to win the pageant. I did it. So there you go. The Netherlands has the first openly trans person who wins the beauty contest. That's what's happening in Europe. That's the highlight of Europe. And here's what I have to say. Just leaving that. I don't think it's fair. And again, this is part of the cultural thing. I don't think it's fair. I got a daughter. I don't think it's fair for my daughter to, if she played she didn't play sports, she was into competitive cheerleading or whatever, but let's say she played field hockey. I wouldn't think it would be fair for her to have to play field hockey against people who were born bigger and stronger than she was by nature. I don't think it's fair to women who are born a woman, who go through all of this and they exercise or they diet or they work out or they do all these things, and then someone who wasn't born a woman comes in and wins the beauty contest. I don't think that's fair. And it's not anti-trans. I believe that trans people and everybody should have the same expectation of rights. It's about, in law, what do you talk about? One of the things you talk about is interest, the interests. You're weighing the interests of the women who were born women in the beauty contest, and the interests of the people who were trans, who weren't born as a woman, weighing the interests. And when I weigh the interests, I don't think it's fair to women. I think, to me, people may get mad at me, but I don't know why, because I got nothing against trans people or anybody else. But I do feel as though, to me, nobody talks about this issue from the perspective of the women. What about them? Women only got but certain things that they can do, that they can win, contests they can win, things they can do, sports that they can play. And they should have a full opportunity to win in all of those sports. And when you bring people who weren't born a woman, introduce them into that sport, I think, or whatever competition it is, I think it erodes the opportunity for women to win. And that's one of the things that I think that's going on culturally. It's not, and here's what kills me about today's cancel culture. People would say, well, he's anti-trans. It doesn't have anything. I'm weighing the interests of people who were born women and people who weren't born women. When you weigh the interest, I think the interest of the naturally born women outweighs the interest of somebody else who wasn't coming into the picture saying, I want to swim, or I want to play basketball, or I want to do whatever. But you have an unfair advantage often over the women when it comes to sports. And in this issue, I just don't think it's fair. That's my opinion. Maybe they should have a Miss Trans. That's fine with that. That's a good idea. A Miss Trans universe. That's great. Have that. Go for it. But I just think that it should be separate. And it's just another thing that Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, a lot of places are looking at the West at stuff like this and saying, yeah, we kind of we're not down with that. And Russia is more conservative culturally, and there's a lot of conservative people who are culturally saying, I'm not really down with that. And it doesn't mean that you hate trans people. It doesn't mean you have anything to do against trans people. It means weighing the interest of women. I'm a guy who grew up in a house with my mom and 4 sisters. Been around women my whole life. A lot of trouble when it comes to women when I was a young man, right? But I'm saying, all jokes aside, I think you have to. I think it's fair to have the discussion about the trans issue when it comes to competition from the perspective of the interest of women, or whether it's fair or not to women. And I think that's a valid discussion, and I don't think people should be canceled or thrown off of anything or denigrated for having that discussion, because it's not a discriminatory discussion. It's not that they don't like any particular body. It's just that to me, the discussion about is fairness to women. And I think that is a valid discussion. So I think maybe if you're going to have a beauty contest, it's fair to have a trans Miss World or Miss America. I think that's an idea. I'm all for that. They should do that. And anybody who wants to get in it could get in it. Anybody who wants to watch it can watch it. I give you that's up to you. That's great. Wonderful. Do what you want. But I just think that, I just think that from the interest of women getting a fair shot, this is something that deserves a discussion. And I guess I brought that up because it happened in the Netherlands. I'm looking at the background and I'm looking at all these women and the looks on their faces, right? If you look at this picture, let's look at this picture just for a second. If you look at this picture, look at the looks on this foot. Look at the look on this woman's face. On this woman's face. I'm just saying, they ain't grinning. This woman's kind of grinning. This woman has a look on her face like, hey, wait a minute. This woman has a look on her face like, yeah, come on, you got to be freaking kidding me, right? Come on. Now, we're women. We're born women. And is it fair? And you have to think to yourself that there's some people, you know how it is nowadays, that are going to vote for the trans person just kind of to make a point, a cultural point. Yes, we're pro-trans, so we got to vote for the trans person. I'm not real thrilled with that situation, only from the perspective of not anything against the trans person. I don't know that it's fair to women. I stand, and now I guess I'm a bad guy that has to be deplatformed or something, because I say I'm thinking on behalf of the women in there. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Let's see. Is there anything else on Rockfin? Always logical. I think that's it. Eleanor Johnson, thank you. Zelensky just went to Bulgaria asking for weapons and got turned down cold. But his job, he did his job. His job is a beggar, and beggars going to beg. Thanks a lot, you all. Do me a favor, share this on all your platforms. If you can, buymeacoffee.com/GarlandNH. And don't forget, it's just like Patreon right now. You can do Buy Me a Coffee, and you can do, it's like $5, buy Garland a coffee, and you can do how many do you want, but you can do it monthly. You can become a monthly subscriber just like Patreon on buymeacoffee.com. So that's a great option if you can. Telegram, follow me there. Patreon, of course, how that works, what you can do. PayPal is another option if you want to help the channel. And of course, I have my Cash App information there. Anybody who feels motivated and can afford it, thank you. Don't forget, go to rockfin.com/Garland Nixon and become a member. It costs absolutely nothing to become a member. If you want to be a subscriber, and if they throw me off of YouTube for things like saying I think it's reasonable to discuss the trans issue without being disrespectful to trans people or anybody else, I think it's reasonable to have that conversation. If they throw me off for that, guess what? You can find me at rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. And of course, if you wish to, you can become a subscriber on Rockfin. That's $14.99 a month, or you get a couple free months. So it's like $12.40 or something a month if you sign up for a year. That is an option. If you can do that, I certainly appreciate it. If you can't, just become a member. It doesn't cost anything, and you'll see all my stuff anyway. Thanks a lot, people. Thanks a lot, dear friends, Valley S and Chicken Patty and everybody. And my main man, Sparky, he's always in the house. Peace. I'm out.